Hello everyone, welcome to another day in the Caliphate of the United Kingdom, where things are so bad we apparently now have blasphemy laws. So for those of you unaware of what is going on in the lovely Yorkshire town of Batley, well, I will quickly catch you up on it. Prophet Muhammad cartoon sparks Batley Grammar School protest. Yes, someone showed Muhammad, and a lot of people in the area got pissed off. No prizes for guessing what religion they followed. So according to the BBC, a teacher who showed pupils an inappropriate quote-unquote cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad, sparking protests outside a school, has been suspended. Because as I say, we have blasphemy. Well, not blasphemy laws, we're not quite at that point yet. What we do appear to have, however, is some sort of de facto rule on blasphemy, where if you ever show this Charlie Hebdo cartoon of Muhammad, you end up losing your income, as West Yorkshire appears to have turned into some sort of de facto caliphate, at least from the images you will see soon. But for now we are on the article. The image depicting the founder of Islam was used in a lesson at Batley Grammar School on Monday. Videos posted online show dozens of people standing outside the school on Thursday, with some demanding the teacher be sacked. The government said it was never acceptable to intimidate teachers. Head teacher Gary Kibble apologised unequivocally, adding the member of staff has given their most sincere apologies and been suspended pending an investigation. We've immediately withdrawn teaching on this part of the course, and we are reviewing how we go forward with the support of all communities represented in our school, he said. It's important for children to learn about faiths and beliefs, but this must be done in a sensitive way. So sensitive, in fact, that you can't even show pictures of the prophet that founded said religion. Yes, it is a massive shame, but it appears in the Caliphate of the United Kingdom. We have grovelling school headmasters who will bow to a mob outside his school and will also fire a teacher that he supervises because he is showing the children an image that, while it is offensive, maybe to some people, it is ultimately harmless as it is an image. I remember seeing insulting images about Jesus while learning about Christianity at school, and this was at a Catholic school, and the reason we learned it is to learn how people on the other side of an argument will try and use tactics to mock Christianity. It's an important thing to learn, and I imagine it's quite important to learn about Islam as well, but in this case, apparently not. Apparently it's so offensive that even showing how it can be offensive is seen as offensive, and the man needs to lose his job over it. Incredible. In fact, the Telegraph have a good video on exactly what demands were made by the gathering outside.
What has happened in the school, we are appalled. We are appalled, and Khatmi Nabuwat and these things, look at what we do as a community, and you'll understand our stance. So what has happened is totally unacceptable. Yeah?
We are appalled, we are appalled, we are appalled as a community, and we need people to understand that, and that is why it is unacceptable. No, something isn't unacceptable just because you are appalled by it. That isn't how it works in this country. Murder, for example, is not illegal in the UK because people are appalled by it. Murder is illegal because it infringes on people's natural rights and therefore is part of common law. A picture of your prophet Muhammad is not and should never be illegal to produce and distribute in the United Kingdom, because whose natural rights does it infringe on? No one. Nothing but your sensibilities are undermined by showing a picture of Muhammad or even making one. So you can show your disgust at the school all you want, but they are not in any way obliged to care about that. But unfortunately, it appears that the headmaster bows to every whim that you are putting forward, which is amazing.
And we have made sure that the school understands that. So the school is preparing a statement. So our discussion is they prepared a statement and we weren't happy with that statement. So we said no, the statement needs to be worded in this way.
We weren't happy with a simple apology. We need to make demands of them and then we will be happy. It's absolutely amazing. It is a lot like leftists who think, for example, that paying off a massive debt to end slavery in the West is not enough for Britain, and we still need to tear down all the statues of anyone who had anything to do with slavery in any way. And it's the same thing here. Anyone that has anything to do with this picture of Muhammad being shown by this teacher has to grovel and apologise, and even then it probably won't be enough. As it always is with these people, They demand a mile, you give them an inch, they then take the mile and then complain that you didn't give them 2. Don't give in. Please respect the values of the country you live in and you are supposed to be representing. Because otherwise, these people will completely undermine it, and then we really will have blasphemy on the law books. And no one ever wants that to happen if they are a proper Englishman.
The school is going to issue an apology, right? Issue a statement. We've asked for amendments on the statement to actually say that they are very apologetic for that, and they apologize. All the resources that were used have been pulled out. Okay, so resources. Just let me finish. Resources have been pulled out. I'll come back. Resources have been pulled out. The teacher has been suspended. The teacher.
Listen to whoever is recording this. You can hear him under his breath say yes when he hears that the teacher's been suspended. Again, it's exactly the same with any leftist who wants anyone cancelled because they're not left-wing enough for them. They revel in ruining people's lives when they don't 100% fit in with their sensibilities. And it's ridiculous. I don't know why this keeps going. The logical conclusion of our SJW/Caliphate of the UK is just going to be that no one has any freedom whatsoever. And the rules are just going to constantly change. Because the rules for things like this always constantly change. And then everyone in the country is going to end up being punished somehow. Anyway, they do carry on.
He has been suspended. Now then, you cannot sack him because you guys are professional. You know you can't just dismiss somebody like that. They have due process. So he's been suspended. Okay, he's been suspended. So now we've asked for an investigation to be independent, and we have asked also that some of us get onto the investigation panel.
So they're complaining because he can't just get instantly sacked, because yes, we do have due process in this country, because we believe you are innocent until proven guilty, but I also love how he goes straight into, oh, we demand an investigation, which they're obviously going to get. They want the investigation to be independent. Right, okay, fair enough. But then they say, oh, we want some people from our community on the investigation panel, which means that they don't want an independent investigation in any way whatsoever. They want to witch hunt the guy. It's just amazing how they think just because you call something independent, it makes it independent. No, it's the actions that make it independent. And if you put someone from your community who is obviously going to be biased on that panel, then in no way whatsoever is it an independent investigation. So it seems these demands were brought about after the protest started, but the scenes from the protest starting, as I said before, they all do come from people of a particular religion, and I would not describe this group as a particularly English group, but I will let you judge for yourselves. Now yes, as you can tell, they were definitely not chanting in English. I assume it's some sort of Arabic. And it is quite intimidating, I do have to say. And when you've got a crowd like that outside who, I mean, let's face it, the whole reason there is a controversy behind the Charlie Hebdo Mohammed cartoon front page is because there was a terrorist attack on the actual Charlie Hebdo offices. Now, I am by no means saying that this crowd was violent, they weren't at all. They were just chanting, but if you are a headmaster outside this school with a lot of police around, you are probably going to try and defuse a situation like that. And so that's probably why he suspended the teacher and gave in to their promises. And yes, I do still think it's weak. But what was interesting is that while people like Darren Grimes put out tweets basically agreeing with me, saying we don't have blasphemy laws in the UK, teachers are free to explore all religions and themes, and our schools mustn't be intimidated into submission for daring to do so, there are people who disagree with that, surprise, surprise. So in a quote tweet to Darren Grimes, there's someone with Doctor in their Twitter handle, surprise, surprise, but Dr. Shola Moz Shogbamimu said this is Islamophobia couched as freedom of speech. Apparently it's Islamophobic to have a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. It is not Western liberalism to use a cartoon/drawing of Prophet Muhammad, which is used against Muslim beliefs, and you don't need to teach it to kids about Islam. Well, Again, who cares if it's against Muslim beliefs? We are taught things against all sorts of beliefs every day in schools, such as abortions maybe being a good idea for teenagers who are pregnant, and use of contraception is commonly taught in schools despite it being offensive to the Catholic faith. Do the Catholics come out and do anything like this at all? No, they do not. The Catholics just tend to put their kids in Catholic schools, where, at least in my experience, contraception wasn't really talked about during sexual education. And then she finishes this tweet off with, telling Muslims to stuff it if they don't like it is reprehensible. Well, I suppose you can call me reprehensible because I am telling you and all Muslims who are complaining about our lovely freedom of speech to stuff it, deal with it, get over it. There are pictures of Muhammad out there. We're going to learn it in lessons. And if that offends you, I do not care. Go to a place that does care, like Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Arab world. But not here. But of course, while we have a protest and some spurgs on Twitter saying that freedom of speech is Islamophobic, the charity Purpose of Life also sent out a letter, which I personally find reprehensible, but they have free speech, so they are allowed to be reprehensible. And yes, we are going to go through this letter because I think it's important to know what their arguments are. So, dear Mr. Kibble, we at Purpose for Life have deeply been hurt by the actions of Mr. Denville, showing insulting caricatures of our beloved Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It seems there are people out there that want to abuse the use of freedom of speech by insulting our beloved prophet. I'm not saying peace be upon him every time. Honestly, you can't abuse freedom of speech by insulting someone. Freedom of speech comes with insulting someone. It is not abusing it. To me, this is clearly showing what hatred people have for the beautiful religion of Islam, and is clearly sadistic behaviour. It's sadistic to show a picture of Muhammad. Unbelievable. Do you understand how much Christianity has been absolutely shat on over the past decade? 2 decades, 3 decades probably. I have been born into a world where Christianity is constantly insulted, and as a Christian, do I care? No. I really don't, because it is those personal people who are at a loss for the particular religion that I believe in. They can insult it all they want. I can take it, Mr. Man of the Muslimic faith. This to me is terrorism to Islam and Muslims around the world. Every Muslim in Islam on planet Earth has just been terrorised because about 10 Muslim pupils were shown the fucking Charlie Hebdo front cover. Please, don't give me that. I thought you had the great Allah on your side. I'm sure he'll protect you, honestly. I'm sure you are already aware, however, I feel obliged to write. We as Muslims love our beloved Prophet Muhammad, even more than our parents. Okay, that's fine. I would never dream of offending anyone's loved ones, so how can this behaviour be acceptable to any sane mind? Okay, you are currently insulting my entire country by trying to undermine free speech and saying it is being abused. You are literally doing that right now. How is that acceptable? Oh, the same way it's acceptable to show a picture of Muhammad. Because it's not up to your sensibilities what is acceptable and unacceptable to the rest of mankind. It is up to you what you see as appropriate. It is up to me as what I see appropriate. And that also comes on a countrywide level. In Britain, it is okay to do this. We have freedom of speech and expression, at least in theory. So don't write out a letter saying something is abusing freedom of speech when you clearly don't understand it. Anyway, currently we are working around the clock helping the Rohingya Muslims who have suffered, again, greatly with a mass fire, who initially suffered, murdered, raped, burnt alive, for purely being Muslim, and this will only increase if we allow this kind of behaviour. Yes, it's the exact same as Sarah Everard. It's the exact same reasoning. It's exactly the same. Women aren't respected in every facet of life, therefore women get murdered, raped and burnt alive. Same here. Look, Muslims are not being murdered, raped and burnt alive just because 10 Muslim boys in a school in Batley were shown the Charlie Hebdo cover with Muhammad. That's not why they are being killed. We at Purpose of Life Charity and many Muslims do what we do purely because we love for Allah, SWT and Prophet Muhammad. I don't know what SWT is. This is what needs to be taught at schools. Yeah, how do you know that wasn't being taught? In fact, I'm sure that was being taught. Why? I was taught about Islam at school, and all I was taught about was their peaceful ways, so don't give me that. I would also like to take this opportunity to say to all Muslims we shall be voicing our concerns on this matter. However, it is important that we do this in the right way. Otherwise, you will be no different to Mr. Denville. Hang on, I don't know what he's trying to say there. When he says in the right way, does he mean don't Charlie Hebdo him? Is that what he means? Because if that's what they are saying, they are putting on a moral equivalence, showing a picture of Muhammad and murder, which is mental to anyone in the Western world. Well, anyone with a brain in the Western world, I should say. But at least he is encouraging a peaceful way of protesting this, which I also encourage. I'm not saying they can't complain about this. I'm not complaining about the way they are going about complaining about this. I am complaining about their rationality behind their demands as to what is to be done about this. I am also complaining about the idiots in charge who are bowing to their demands. Thank you, Headmaster of Batley, you absolute moron. Anyway, back to the letter. We took great pleasure in working with Batley Grammar School, helping the local children, and we hope we can continue this beautiful relationship. However, until we see Mr. Denville's position permanently removed from Batley Grammar School, we cannot work with or promote Batley Grammar School. Whilst the school has issued an unreserved apology for Muslims, this does not go far enough. See what I mean? They demand a mile, they get an inch, they complain that you don't get 2 miles. The mere fact that Mr. Denville has not come out and apologised for the hurt and anger caused to Muslims speaks volumes. Jesus. This is the stance Purpose of Life takes with any organisation who attacks our beloved Prophet Muhammad. Of course, this is apparently a Muslim-run charity, which is fine. They would only come out with things like this for images of Muhammad that are insulting, even if they're not insulting, to be fair. They wouldn't do this with any other religion, so I really don't care about it. I mean, they can have their special interest all they want, but if they're not being principled with every single religion, then I don't care. That is not a principled stance. This is you having a massive in-group preference for your own religion, and I just don't care for it at all. I'm sorry, it's simply not my concern. The fallouts from this be far-reaching. In order for the healing process to begin and to restore any confidence in the school must also recognise its own shortcomings in allowing Mr. Denville to deliver the subject around the caricatures. Amazing. Amazing. They want 3 miles at this point, so it's not good enough that he's apologised. It's not good enough if he does apologise. It's not good enough if he's fired. The school now have to give themselves 100 lashes for allowing such an insult. I have full confidence the school will make the right decisions quickly so we can put this matter to rest. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Kind regards, Mohammed Sajjad Hussein. Amazing. How he managed to expand the sentence, "This hurt my sensibilities, please fire him," into a 5-6 paragraph letter is beyond me. This is all education in the UK does, by the way. All it does is allow you to expand a sentence into an entire letter, which isn't how I think education should go, but there we go. Fortunately, there is some sanity in the UK, as the Free Speech Union wrote 3 letters to the school expressing their disappointment. We were disappointed by the response of the head teacher of Batley Grammar School in the demands of a religious mob at his school gates on Thursday morning, demanding he sack a religious studies teacher. The teacher's sin, if the media reports are accurate, was to have shown his pupils some of the controversial cartoons of Muhammad that appeared in Charlie Hebdo, in the course of teaching them about that controversy in which 12 people were murdered by Islamist terrorists. This was exactly the same sin that led to the brutal murder of Samuel Batley by an Islamist terrorist in the suburb of Paris last year, but instead of standing up for the teacher's right to freedom of speech, the head made a grovelling apology to the mob, describing the cartoons as completely inappropriate and suspending the teacher. And, well, I mean, that's pretty much all I've said in the video so far. We have written 3 letters in connection with this episode. A letter to Gary Kibble, the head teacher, complaining about his failure to stand up for free speech rights of his staff member. A letter to John Robbins, the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire, asking him to ensure the teacher is given round-the-clock police protection until the controversy subsides. And a letter to Helen Stevenson, the CEO of the Charity Commission, complaining about the behaviour of Purpose for Life, a Muslim charity that condemned the teacher's actions, calling for him to be permanently removed from the school and, unforgivably in the circumstances, naming him. Oh, that is a good point. Not only did the charity dox this teacher, it then published its letter naming him on Twitter, which I don't believe I've shared. We have referred to the letter to the purpose of life in our letters to the Chief Constable and the Charity Commission, and included a copy as an attachment to both letters, but we have not reproduced the letter here for obvious reasons. Very good, that is the perfect thing to do, and if you want to read these letters in your own time, obviously, as usual, a link is in the description. I understand the irony of showing you all the letter in this video while saying it's the perfect thing to do to not do that, but I personally think it's important to produce the letter for the purposes of this video because I'm more about getting the full context behind these events, while in turn being an activist for freedom of speech. So if all that wasn't enough, it appears this issue has been escalated. Gavin Williamson enters row over cartoon of Prophet Muhammad. The Education Secretary criticises threats against Batley teacher who showed pupils Muhammad image. So it appears that he is one of our guys as well. Gavin Williamson has condemned parents' protest against children being shown a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad in class as completely unacceptable. Good man. Crowds gathered yesterday at Batley Grammar School to complain about the image, which parents said was from the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. The non-selective school in West Yorkshire has apologised over the inappropriate image shown during a religious studies lesson this week and suspended a teacher. Video film shows people gathered around the school gates amid shouts of "Get the head teacher," although police confirmed that there had been no arrests or fines issued for breaches of the coronavirus restrictions. Oh yeah, I always forget that we're in the middle of a pandemic with all these bloody protests going on. The Education Secretary intervened last night. A spokesman for the Department of Education said it is never acceptable to threaten or intimidate teachers. We encourage dialogue between parents and schools where issues emerge. However, the nature of protest we have seen, including issuing threats and in violation of coronavirus restrictions, is completely unacceptable and must be brought to an end. The spokesman said that schools are free to include a full range of issues, ideas and materials in their curriculum, including where they are challenging or controversial, subject to their obligations to ensure political balance. He added that schools must balance this with the need to promote respect and tolerance between people of different faiths and beliefs, including in deciding what materials to use in the classroom. So, as I have said this whole time, it is completely free and legal to put this picture of Muhammad in front of pupils, no matter what faith they are. And if they find it offensive, so be it. But we live in the United Kingdom, we have the freedom to do this, and if your sensibilities don't allow you to handle that, please move elsewhere where the society is in parallel with your sensibilities. Forcing change on our society is not only unfair, it is also immoral, at least when it comes to my sensibilities. But of course, all this reasoning is not good enough for the protester types who were so offended by a single picture of Muhammad they had to come back for a second day. Here are some video clips from the protest from the second day.
The incident from Monday 22nd of March must be investigated from a criminal perspective.
Yes.
See, within a day, it has gone from we need an apology, then it went to we need him fired. Now that he's been suspended, it's gone to he needs to have an independent investigation into the schools. And then, today, after that, it's gone to it needs to be investigated as a criminal matter for the police. Mental. They are using every part of the state to try and get this school absolutely eradicated and anyone who's ever shown a picture of Muhammad in jail. This is not a caliphate. Move to a caliphate if you want that.
Given that it was a clear attempt to stir up religious hatred. We also use this opportunity to call upon the entire British Muslim community to review the materials being taught in their children's schools, whether they relate to offensive content or inappropriate relationship and sex education.
So now we're asking for 4 miles. Every part of every curriculum needs to be seen through and approved by the Muslim Brotherhood of Britain. All because they think showing a picture of Muhammad is an attempt to stir up hatred, an incitement to hatred. They know the law, to be fair, because this does actually come under the Communications Act, where grossly offensive material that stirs up hatred is a crime, although that does specify that it has to be done over the internet. Whether it's done in a classroom and that comes under a different law, I don't know, but definitely under the Communications Act, that is the case. Anyway, let's see what else they have to say.
One of the children told me himself that he had said to the children that your boys have been shooting our boys' legs off in Iraq. And when they asked him what, and somebody pulled the phone out, he wouldn't reply.
Well, that's handy, isn't it? He says something that is incredibly incriminating to himself, to the pupils, and there's absolutely no evidence of this, and then, oh, once you can get evidence of this, oh no, then he stops saying it. Oh, what a surprise. I am just going to outright say I don't believe that in any way, shape or form. At the moment, I do not believe that. I have no reason to believe that, and I believe they are so insulted they are willing to lie to get this person in jail, because to them it is justified to lie to get him in jail. I mean, he insulted the Prophet Muhammad. Good Lord, I can't imagine ever doing that.
So that teacher was the teacher who prepared the lecture for this teacher to deliver. So what they're saying is that that should also be looked at, and if that teacher is involved in the instigation of what has happened, then he also should be suspended.
So now there's allegations of another completely unnamed teacher. He was apparently involved somehow because he said to some boys that, quote unquote, their boys were shooting off his boys' legs in Iraq. Which may or may not have happened, but given the circumstances, I'm very much on the side that this never happened. They just seem to want to completely take over the school, and they'll lie to do that. I don't know. I don't like accusing people of lying, but in this case I'll make an exception. It's just such a ridiculous thing to say. So, there we go. But there's one last clip.
You can't expect something like this from somebody who is in this education, who is in a profession to educate the people, to educate the generation, to educate the children, right? And especially this school is located around the Muslim community. So we should be even more careful.
Yes, you are correct. He is in a position to educate the children. I don't believe anything really should be censored from kids as they are being educated. Aside from the obvious adult topic should probably only be shown to kids over the age of 16, there is no reason really to censor images of religious prophets. Aside from your delicate sensibilities, in which you basically now have to spend 2 days protesting outside a school because one teacher decided to show a controversial cartoon of Muhammad that was relevant to the lesson he was giving. And you wanting to censor that, quite frankly, I think, is doing a disservice to these kids' educations. They need a wider worldview as possible. They need to learn that things that can offend them ultimately will end in absolutely no harm to them. They need to learn that they can follow their religions and that other people will not be following their religion and will even be inclined to insult it in some way. And if they can't deal with that like adults like they should, for whatever reason, like you can't, then I don't see how they can fit into this society properly. Because as a British society, we have agreed that insulting religion is acceptable. And if you don't like it, you don't have to hear it, you can pull the kids out of school and put them in your own, assuming all the education there is legal. But no, in this case we have to complain, protest, make demands, and once those demands are met, make even more demands until we have taken over the entire education system. That seems to be what the plan is here. And I do think it is the job of the Education Secretary and the headmaster to tell these morons that it is perfectly acceptable to do this in British schools. Because the more we give in to these demands, the more that our country, its culture, history and all that jazz is being infringed. And I and many other people do not like to see that. So the final thing I'm going to go through now is a clip from Talk Radio with Julia Hartley-Brewer, who managed to get in contact with Mohammed Sajid Hussain, who is the founder and CEO of Purpose of Life. And she was interviewing him about what he thinks of the whole situation, and I think it's worth a listen. So let's have a listen.
Do you not also have a responsibility when you speak out about this and when your organisation tweets about this and when you broadcast about this, that you should also be aware that you have a responsibility not to inflame feelings on either side either, which does end up leading to the sort of violence we saw in Paris, Charlie Hebdo and Samuel Paty?
A fair question, because reading that letter, he was making very strange arguments and he was naming the person a lot. And it is possible that while the accused is innocent until proven guilty, his name should not be out there for the world to see, as people may try and get revenge on him for, well, insulting the Prophet Muhammad, because we have seen this happen many times before. It happened to a teacher in Paris last year, and it happened at Charlie Hebdo a few years ago. So let's hear his answer.
Of course we have a responsibility, and that's why we have put on the letter, we have asked the Muslim community to not do anything silly and not to do anything against the law. That's in the letter. So we have to cover that angle as well, and we've made sure that people don't break the law, because we would say you are just as bad, if not worse.
Which is perfectly fair. That's a perfectly reasonable response. Until he gets to the part where he says, if you break the law, you are as bad as him, if not worse. Which is amazing, and thankfully, Julia Hartley-Brewer actually pushes him on.
So we have
Well, I mean, beheading people, can we at least agree that beheading people would be worse than showing an image of Prophet Muhammad?
Of course, beheading, any form of violence, we are against, and we've made that
That
very
would
clear
be
in
that
various
would be
statements
worse.
and in the
Beheading
letter.
someone would be worse than showing an image of Muhammad.
To be honest, I can't believe we're even having this
No,
discussion.
neither can.
He is dodging that question like his life depends on it. That is amazing. It's another classic leftist tactic of, say, when you ask them what is racism, they will say, oh, I can't believe we're having to have this discussion. They can't engage with the point. All they can do is try and defend their own side, and it is very irritating and shows that they lack intellectual fortitude, which I have to say Julia Hartley-Brewer actually has a fair amount of, for a radio presenter anyway.
I'm just shocked. I'm
shocked you haven't answered my question twice. Because I thought that was a given. Beheading someone would be
Of course it's terrible. Of course it's...
It would be worse than showing an image of Muhammad.
Yes, we know you think it's bad, but we are trying to find out where your moral compass lies. If you think it's more morally reprehensible to show a picture of Muhammad than behead someone, then that is incredibly alien to a lot of people in the UK.
Yes or no?
Of course, beheading someone, of course, it's a really bad crime. As the Prophet, peace be on him, said, if you attack someone innocent, it's as if
showing
murdering
an
the whole
image
of
of
mankind.
I'm going to ask you for the final time. Would it be worse to behead someone for showing an image of the Prophet Muhammad than to be the person who showed the image of the Prophet Muhammad?
Of course, yes.
Thank you.
4 times it took him to say that. 4 times. It was an open goal 4 times. And eventually then he concedes, yes, it would be worse. Finally. Whether he was sincere in that answer or not, I do not know, but I think it speaks volumes it took 4 attempts to ask the question to get him to finally answer it, honestly or not. But anyway, that was everything I had for you today. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.